We are getting into some really interesting stuff today. So first up, I've got how pregnancy can ruin your guitar tone. I know, pretty weird, but it is true. And next, I've got some super nerdy things around guitar harmonics that I think you're going to find pretty cool. And then lastly, I've got what I'm hoping is going to be the definitive test around how some humbuckers can pick up the wood vibration and not just the guitar strings. Humbuckers that do this are my favorite type of pickup, and I'm going to explain how and why this all works as well. But anyway, let's get into that first test. Now this one actually potentially affects everyone, not just pregnant people, but the way I found out about it was when my wife was pregnant years ago. She had this exact guitar, this Larrivee guitar, and it's a beautiful sounding acoustic, and I noticed that it was sort of getting less rich and kind of thinner sounding, and I was like, why is this guitar not sounding quite right? But when I'd pick it up and play it, it would sound fine. So what I found out was actually because of her pregnant belly pushing against the back of the acoustic guitar, and it was stopping that back from resonating and making the guitar sound way thinner and not as rich sounding. What I've got today to simulate, because I'm not currently pregnant, to simulate that same thing, I've got this rubber mat, and it kind of makes it less awkward for me to push up against the back. I want to try and keep the distance from the mic around about the same, so it kind of gives a real consistent result, just to show you what I mean. But all you've got to do is push your body up against the back of the guitar and then take it away, and you can instantly hear the difference. So let's have a listen to this. As you can hear there, it's a pretty massive difference. I'll take my little baby out. It's a pretty massive difference, and it really affects the way the guitar sounds acoustically. Now, interestingly, I've tried this on an electric guitar, and it does the same thing acoustically. I'm not sure electrically if it's going to do anything, but I'm going to do a couple of quick tests right now. All right, so let's try this again with this electric guitar. I'm going to do the same thing, just going to play a few chords, and I will put this on and off the back of the guitar. There is a drastic change acoustically anyway, so much more top end coming from the guitar naturally acoustically when I'm playing with the back opened up. So the lesson here is, I mean, I know we're all different shapes and sizes, but if you can leave a bit of air gap in the back of your guitar, I'm not sure it matters too much on an electric guitar, but with an acoustic, it is just a night and day difference in sound. Make sure you're wearing those headphones too, because I don't think you're going to hear it as easily through laptop or phone speakers. Now these next few things are pretty cool and freaking interesting. Now I've never heard anyone talk about harmonics like this, so I hope you find it really cool. I'm going to keep this pretty practical so you can try it yourself, but it's all about harmonics and finding notes within notes. It sounds pretty weird, but check it out. So when you're playing a harmonic, you're not really creating a new sound. You're really just sort of taking away a whole bunch of information. I'll show you what I mean. So within this E note here, there is a whole bunch of extra notes, but the way to sort of hear it is to play a harmonic backwards, if that makes sense. So I'm going to play this open E, and then I'm just going to touch on that 12th fret. And you notice when I play the E again, you can hear that harmonic sitting in there. The interesting thing about this is when you play these other harmonics. So let's do the one at the 7th fret. So it's a B note, essentially. That sound. Let's do that one again. But you can clearly hear that little B note is inside this open E. So that's something that I've always found really interesting. There's a whole bunch of harmonics all the way up and down the neck, and it kind of makes sense why when you put two notes together, the sound is so much more complex than just two single notes alone, because there's actually a lot going on inside one single note. I hope it's not way too nerdy for you guys, but I just found that really interesting. But it kind of leads me on to this next one, which is subharmonic bends. Now, this one's also kind of equally as pointless, but it's really interesting. It's when you play a certain double stop notes, it creates like a subharmonic sound going downwards. So when I play these two, this bend here, bending upwards, there is a really low sound going downwards at the same time. It's like boo, kind of like that if you can hear it. Same with this one here. This one's ultra low. That one I find really easy to hear. It's like boo. I know, pretty nerdy, but I just don't think anyone talks about this sort of stuff, and it's just really interesting stuff to know, playing around with things and different sounds. That one sounds really cool to me. I did a video a little while ago about some pickups I make called echo coils and how they pick up the body vibration, not just the strings. And I really wanted to do a follow-up because there was a whole bunch of unanswered questions in that video. So I'm going to do that straight after we've done these tests today. In a nutshell, there are pickups that actually do pick up the body vibration, not just the strings. And it makes the whole guitar feel so much more alive and addictive to play. All right, so let's crack into these tests. Okay, so this is the echo coil out of my Telecaster that I use quite often on the channel. Now, this pickup has been designed specifically to amplify body vibration as well as the strings, just like a lot of those old humbuckers did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch the top of it here. That's going to ground me and sort of shield a lot of the wiring. Then I'm going to push this tuning fork onto this piece of wood here, and we're going to hear that the vibration just goes straight through the wood into the pickup. Okay, so now we're going to compare this with a Sir Thornbucker and see what sort of sounds we get. So the same, I'm going to push on the top just to ground myself to help keep that noise down, but because these pickups are not inside a guitar, they're going to be a little buzzy and a little noisy. Okay, so how does this all work? So basically with these echo coils, the whole idea behind the design was to make them pick up wood vibration, right? Not just the strings, because as you saw in that other video, I had experiences where I really loved the feeling of those sorts of pickups. Now there is an absolute sweet spot. If you go too far either way, you either don't get enough of it or you get too much that the guitar is completely out of control, like that broken Ibanez I was talking about. What is actually happening here is that I've made these pickups purposely microphonic. Now I know microphonic is like a bad word in the guitar world. If something's microphonic, it pretty much just means it's broken. But I've found that you can actually sort of harness this, or I suppose control the microphonics, and get it to a point where it gives you that same sort of feeling, but you can reject a lot of those issues. Now, I'm going to go into a lot more detail about this on my Fourth Wall page. So any of you Plus members over at Fourth Wall, I've got another video over there sort of explaining specifically about these echo coils and how they're designed. Also, if you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing. It really helps get these videos out to more people. That'd be fantastic. When you're building pickups like this, when you're trying to control those microphonics, you need to make it so you find that sort of sweet spot in the middle. If they're too microphonic, they're out of control, squealing and howling, that sort of thing. And if there's not enough of that, you just don't get that same feeling. It's really hard to describe. It doesn't really change the tone of the pickup so much as how it feels while you're playing it. Kind of like there's always a little bit of reverb on or something kind of like that. But at the moment, these echo coils are in this Tele, and I've got this on a pretty high gain sound. And no problems, where with like an old school set of PAFs, you might get a whole bunch of squealing and issues where these are still pretty quiet. If I put it onto an insane high gain sound, you would definitely run into problems there. That's the main thing with pickups that sort of feel this way. They are microphonic essentially, but not so microphonic that it's a problem, and not the other way where it's just ultra sterile and you're not getting that same sort of feeling, that interactive feeling that you get from when your pickups are kind of wound or designed in this way. I hope you really enjoyed this today, guys. It was an absolute blast for me to put all this together, and we'll catch you in the next video.